Hello everyone, welcome to this month's edition of North Central Outdoors. I'm your host, Nathan Karch. We always are very accepting of viewers' questions, and just recently here at North Central Outdoors, we had a question from a viewer pertaining to small game hunting, specifically rabbit hunting and the habitat. And we've seen a great decrease in the habitat. So we just want to jump into addressing that, and then we'll discuss a variety of topics after that. So we have seen a great loss in habitat for rabbit hunting, and I think that's due to a number of factors. We have seen a decline in farmland. It's all popping up as subdivision. People are selling their farms. And then people that raise cattle and have agricultural practices on their farms, the cattle are decimating the grown-up fence rows. You just don't see that. People are, constantly plowing the fields and planting the fields, and it's just a constant turnover every single year. You don't get those big grown-up fields that you once had that a small game flourished. The big brush piles and things of that nature where it really holds a good amount of rabbit. We're not seeing that. And also our wildlife management areas, we do have some of those areas across the state, but this sounds bad, but we try to target the majority of our hunters and sportsmen out there. And since small game is kind of a dying, or small game hunting is a dying art and a dying practice, and big game hunting is on the rise and has been for many, many years, we try to target the majority of hunters and what they want to do and what they want to see. So our management practices change with that influence. So we tend to try to manage our wildlife management areas for big game hunting, turkey, deer, elk, bear, and things of that nature. Not saying we don't have good small game hunting opportunities as well. We just don't see that, all across the WMA. Your vast majority of your WMA is going to be targeted for those big game species because we have all kinds of youth hunts and wounded warrior hunts and just quota hunts, specialized hunts that we do for big game instead of small game. So if you are a small game hunter out there, we do realize that there needs to be more habitat, and I would just say if you're interested in that and you want to participate in that and want to go to a wildlife management area, if you have a specific WMA in mind, reach out to that WMA manager, contact them before you arrive. That way you're not disappointed, and see what they have. They'll be able to tell you. They know their WMA very, very well, and they're the main ones that manage for all those different species and whatever target species you're after. So just see if they've got some good habitat and just go for it. Otherwise, maybe knock on some doors to some farmers in the area, some major farmers. And I know the people that probably have the best habitat are those farmers that manage specifically for that, and they put on paid hunts. And so they're directly, getting funding through hunters to provide that habitat. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope I answered that question, but we know there's a definite decline in the availability of habitat for small game, and specifically rabbit. And also, there's not as many people that are willing to, raise the dogs, train the dogs. That's a lot of mouths to feed, and most people do it with dogs. And so I think just due to the responsibility and financial issues and stuff like that, it's hard to come by, and it's a lot of work. So again, hope I answered that question, but I think that's where we're at. So to jump into the other topics, I wanted to give you a brief update on the 2021-2022 deer season and the numbers that I pulled from there compared to last year. So last year we saw a tremendous spike in deer hunting activity from new hunters, from old hunters that have been doing it a while, and everywhere in between. So I think we can contribute that to basically where we were at in the world last year with lockdown and COVID quarantines and stuff like that, dealing with that issue. It was just, it was crazy. So everybody was in quarantine. Employers were, basically forcing employees to go on quarantine. And we basically shut the world down. It was on lockdown. We were stuck indoors with our families and stuff like that, and going a little bit stir crazy. So everybody flocked to the outdoors to do some deer hunting, and I think that was their one outlet that they could go and do to release some stress. And I know I did it myself a lot more than I normally do, and I really enjoyed it. So it was great to see a lot of people outdoors, but our numbers reflect that as well. So last year we saw upwards of 160,000 deer killed statewide. In recent years, it kind of varies between 125,000 to 135,000. This year we saw 132,000 deer killed. So that was a lot of deer back in 2020 compared to this year, but the numbers this year reflect those in 2019 and 2018 as well. So I think we're coming back to a little bit more a normalcy, which is great. But they fluctuate from year to year, except for last year where it was just that crazy spike. And I think we can relate that back to those factors and stuff like that, and also other contributing factors that I didn't even mention. But I'll just go ahead and read some of the numbers off as far as bucks to does. Last year we saw 86,000 and some odd bucks being killed, 65,000 does, compared to this year where we saw 74,000 bucks killed and 50,000 does. And the ones that I didn't mention in there that would have left a pretty good gap in between the overall numbers, those were just button buck kills where they were considered antlerless, but they weren't. They didn't fall under the topic of bucks. So the remaining ones, they were all button bucks. And then successful hunters last year were 118,000. This year was 102,000. So you can see how many successful hunters there were last year compared to this year. And I think that's just due to people getting back into work, focusing more on work. Maybe people picked up a new job for the first time, and again, we're going back to a little bit more normalcy. The world's not shut down anymore. And also we do have meat on our shelves at the grocery store. Last year we didn't see that, so I think a lot of people flock to the outdoors just to be able to provide for their family because they couldn't get meat. And now you still can't be too picky. You gotta get what you can take, but we are starting to see more meat be on our shelves at the grocery store, and hoping the years to come it's going to be back to normal. But those are the numbers for the 2021 and 2022 deer season, and we'll kind of keep you up to date on this next deer season and how those compare again. Going on to some other opportunities that you can partake in the off season, and when I say off season, I mean no big game season going on at the current time, is you can predator hunt, you can small game hunt, you can trap, or you can do a little bit of fishing to fill in the gap in between now and the upcoming spring turkey opener. So we'll just dive right on into that. Predator hunting, you can do coyote or bobcat. Coyote is open year-round. There is no limit on coyote. And bobcat, there is a specific season for bobcat, but we are in it. It closes February 28th, and there's no limit on bobcat while we're in season. You can use electronic calls or mechanical calls with your mouth and everything like that. And there are no restrictions right now because there's no big game season going on. So centerfire rifles are a go, shotguns, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that the property you're hunting, you do have permission from that landowner, and it is during legal hunting hours only, no night hunting. I know a lot of people would like to see that, but as of right now, it's just during daylight legal hunting hours only. Small game hunting, we've got a tremendous amount of small game that we can hunt. Specifically, squirrel is big right now. you can harvest 10 squirrels per day. That's the daily bag limit. And that closes February 28th. But if you get into a big hardwood stand, mature hardwoods that specifically have oak and hickory in it, they're in there feeding on the acorns and hickory nuts. I know when I'm deer hunting, there are many days all I see are a lot of squirrels, and I wish I had just a little pellet rifle to not come home empty-handed every time. But that's one thing that you can go out and do right now, and I promise you, you will be successful. We've got a lot of squirrels out there. And then to do basically a 360 and relate back to the rabbit hunting, we do have rabbit going on now until the 28th as well. So the daily bag limit for those are 5 per day. You don't have to use dogs. You can just go out with a shotgun or a 22 and try to locate those as well. You can go into a grown-up fence row if you have brush piles on your property, or just a big thicket. Just go get you some chaps or some gators, and go in there and try to stir them and flush them out. And they're in there. They're just kind of hiding out. So on into trapping. I know trapping along with small game hunting is kind of a dying art. Unfortunately, we just don't have as much participation anymore. Kind of the old timers practiced it a whole lot, but now it's all about the big game. But if you do find somebody that knows a lot about trapping, I encourage you to pick up anything you can about trapping to teach people down the road, because eventually there's not going to be many people out there that really know how to do it very successfully. So there's a number of species that you can trap right now. One being beaver, coyote, striped skunk, groundhog, armadillo, raccoon, possum, and even bobcat. So for beaver, coyote, and groundhog, as well as striped skunk, there are no limits, and you can do this trapping year-round. For the other species that I mentioned, bobcat, possum, raccoon, there are seasons, and they do end the 28th of February. So I keep coming back to the end of February. That's kind of where the end of our fiscal year stops. And then we pick back up on a new fiscal year, March 1st. So all of our state licenses will expire at the very end of February, and you'll have to purchase new licenses beginning March 1st. And we start fresh on a new season, which will be the 2022-2023 season, March 1st. And it starts off with early spring turkey. And then it goes into all kinds of different fishing, small game hunting, into big game hunting with the 2022-2023 deer season, and then the waterfowl season right after that. So again, your licenses will expire February 28th, and then it will pick back up with the new ones on March 1st. So be sure to go get and purchase your new license. Back to the small game hunting, trapping, predator hunting, I just want to touch on the correct and appropriate licenses that you will have to do that. For small game hunting, if you don't have a sportsman, just your type 001 will suffice. For trapping, your type 001 or type 19, both of those you will have to have. The 19 is a supplemental license specifically for trapping. And then if you have a sportsman's license, you're already good to go. The sportsman's license covers all the supplemental licenses that the state has to offer. And then for small game hunting, just your type 001. And then also, I just want to touch on it, there are a tremendous amount of fishing opportunities that you can partake in right now. I know it's cold, nasty weather, usually in the winter and into the spring months, but the bite is on. Specifically these cold water species, sauger, walleye, crappie, and some big striped bass. You can catch them all right now. It's a great time to go. A lot of people think, well, you need warm weather. You don't. They're hitting good, and even the largemouth and smallmouth right now. And all you need to fish is just your type 001, or if you do it all, your sportsman, as always, will cover that. So again, just to reiterate everything that we've discussed in the off season, small game hunting, predator hunting, trapping, and fishing, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And even if you want to go partake in some boating right now, it's a little cold, but you might be into that. You've got it all. So I urge everybody to get outdoors, relieve some of that day-to-day stress, and I hope you have fun. And as always, be safe. And we'll see you next time.